Morning. Jeff Klass, I'm the CEO of Sense Diagnostics, and here at Sense, we've developed technology to detect, measure, and monitor neurological disorder of the brain. And we do so in real time and non-invasively. And the first application of the technology we use is for stroke and traumatic brain injury patients. We have a great team. I won't go through everybody, but there's one bond that we all have. We've all lost somebody to either stroke or traumatic brain injury very close to us. So we're very passionate about what we do, and we know that what we're going to do is going to be very successful. For those patients, though, with stroke and traumatic brain injury, time is brain. So they need to get immediate access to the right kind of care in order to treat effectively what is going on. If they lose time, then they lose brain. And this results in permanent disability and even death for these people. So our solution is non-invasive triaging and monitoring of these patients in real time. Now, right now, we're developing 3 different devices, and should it not be up there? Oh, I'm sorry. 3 different devices. The first one over here on the left, Neustat, that's used in the neuro ICU to monitor patients. The one in the middle, NeuroHawk, will be used in the emergency room and with EMS personnel. This is a triage device. This will determine if somebody is having a stroke, most importantly, by stroke subtype. And also, we could detect bleeding from a traumatic brain injury. And then finally, we're under contract with the government to create a TBI detection and monitoring device for the military. Current standard of care in the hospital, if somebody's in the neuro ICU, hospital personnel come in about every hour and check their condition. The problems here are, if there is a declining condition, the outward signs lag. Also, these patients could be unconscious, they could be intubated, they could have just been woken up. It's very difficult to tell exactly what's going on inside the brain. Our device is going to monitor their condition on an ongoing basis. Each minute, we're going to take a scan. Single scan takes 2.5 seconds, and we get 360 data points of the brain. We'll alarm if there's been an expansion greater than 3 ml. In the case of ER, we all know how overcrowded they are these days, right? They're always overcrowded, even more so now. But this is a very effective triage tool in the emergency room. Also with EMS, they come upon a patient, they really don't know what's going on. They have a model, it's called Scoop and Scoot. They bring these patients right to the closest hospital for treatment, and this is not always the best decision. So with our device, they're going to be able to put that on the patient's head. They'll be able to triage them because we're going to tell them exactly if they're having a stroke and what kind of stroke it is. That's the most important decision. And also we'll be able to tell if they're having bleeding from a traumatic brain injury. And for the military, there is nothing. So being able to have a device such as ours to be used in the field when a warfighter has been injured is very critical to his survival. So how do we work? In each of those different headsets, there's 9 antennae. These 9 antennas send and receive low-power radio frequency, 1/500th out of a cell phone through the brain. Normal brain tissue is going to give off a very specific signal. Stroke, ischemic tissue from a stroke is going to give off, again, a different signal because the brain tissue has now changed. Pooling from blood from a hemorrhage, that's going to give off a third signal. Our algorithms then calculate the change in signal, and from that, we're able to determine what's going on inside the patient's brain. Now, as I said, 360 data points in 2.5 seconds. We have seen bleeds as small as 1 ml, very small, size of a pea, and ischemic tissue, as small as 3 ml. Our competition, most of them are just making a device to be used in ambulances. Our device is going to be used, as I said, in ambulances, in the ICU, in the ER, anywhere where stroke or a traumatic brain injury could present itself. That's where we're going to be with our product. We distinguish ourselves with our ability to determine what kind of stroke it is or bleeding, but also we cover the entire brain, the whole cranial vault. And we are movement tolerance, and we do continuously monitor, and we're very cost effective to the market. So it's very affordable. Where we stand right now for the hospital monitoring device, that's in clinical trial right now in the US, Canada, and India. We hope to finish that trial up by around the by the first quarter of next year and launch commercially in the third quarter of 23. For the emergency room device, we're going to kick off that clinical trial the 1st of July. and then we hope to be commercial with that by the fourth quarter of next year. So 2 products in 2023 going to market. The military device, we're in performance period number 1, $2.43 million contract. That leads us into period 2, which is an $8.10 to $10 million contract. That includes, again, a clinical trial that the FDA has that we have to go through for FDA submission. In the end, we're the sole source contractor to the military for that device. Path to commercial success. So this is the US model, but we're gonna open in Canada, India at the same time, and we already have our distribution model setting up in Europe. But in hospital, in the monitoring device, that's where we go first. From there, that leads us into the ER for selling that. The ER is a good takeoff point to getting into the EMS market. What really excites us, though, is eventually getting into the consumer market, because this device needs to be in all organized sports, professional, amateur, college, you name it, but that's where it needs to be. Also needs to be in nursing homes and emergent care facilities and doctor facilities, anywhere where stroke is going to present itself. So the consumer market is huge, and that's where we ultimately need to get. In the US, we're going to be selling this device on a razor blade model. For the hospital monitoring device, it's a monitor which will cost about $5,000, one-time sale. The headset is disposable, and that'll be about $5,000 per headset. In the EMS, ER device, the technology, the software will be resident as an app on their cell phone or on their tablet. The headset, which is very small and disposable, will go for about $200 a piece, and that is a very good way to fit into that market. Canada, not a big commercial opportunity for us, but we are doing clinical research up there now. And for our new product development, radio frequency engineering happens to be a big thing up in the Montreal area with people from McGill and the University of Montreal. India, stroke and traumatic brain injury are a big problem there. That's why we're doing majority of half of our trial will be done in India. But also, we already have manufacturing and distribution partners set up in that country. So as soon as we're approved, we're going to market. Europe, we're already establishing our distribution market in the continent. We'll be filing for our CE mark in the third quarter. Military, as I said, sole source provider to the US Department of Defense. We've already had conversations with NATO. They're extremely interested in what we have, and we'll be meeting again with them in Brussels in September. So we started with $1.5 million of non-dilutive funding, primarily NSF. We did have $1.2 million in seed. Most important partner for us in our seed round was Cleveland Clinic, so that's a good stamp of approval that we're on the right track. Right now we're in our Series B. We're raising $17 million, and of that, we've already got about $7.5, $8 million in. We're in due diligence with some others. But when we finalize that, we have $5 million in reserve at the end of this year. That $5 million takes us to commercial in 2023. Primarily used for clinical trial work and product development. And our financial projections, we're launching 2 products in 2023, so the lift begins. And these numbers are only for sales in the US, so we do have Europe, rest of the world, which will be additive to this. Exit strategy, we're talking to major imaging companies already, EMS companies, medical devices, they're all very interested now. So we feel very comfortable that we're going to have that kind of exit. So why invest in us? I think we have very distinct advantages over our competition. We have an excellent leadership team. But it's a very important unmet medical need that we're trying to address. The other thing I want to point out just before I finish up here is that we will be accelerating our R&D in the oncology space. Then we move into all neurodegenerative, and we have a sudden cardiac arrest application. So thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing about Sense Diagnostic. If you want to know more, I'll be in the breakout session after this.